Hello everyone, I'm Pregalia Armagum, and with me on Here to Connect's YouTube channel, I have Ciara McCarthy. They are a disability advocate who has CP, autism, and profound hearing loss, and they have cochlear implants as well. They make content around living with a disability, and I'm really excited to have them on our channel today.
Hey, I'm very excited to meet with you as I have been following you for a very, very long time. Um,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this interview with you. It's really such an honor to have you on. I think you're really inspiring and you have a great story to tell, especially with your disability advocacy. I'm really inspired and can't wait to see what great things you do.
yeah.
So, my first question for you today is please tell a bit about yourself and your story.
So, my name's Kira. I have cerebral palsy, autism, and profound hearing loss with bilateral cochlear implant. So, I was born with a virus called congenital CMV. What's the one word is psychomegalovirus, if you ever want to look that up. And that's what caused my cerebral palsy. And then at 9 months old, I was diagnosed with hearing loss, which became profound. And I got my first cochlear implant when I was 3, and my second cochlear implant when I was 5. So, a long time. And yeah, it's been a very interesting experience, particularly as I just got diagnosed with autism when I was 16. So it's a very long process of having to get all my diagnoses. But I'm very proud, and I love talking about my disabilities because there's this perception that you can only have one disability when there's not. So that's why I create content.
Yeah, I think there's so much stigma around that. I'm really happy like you addressed that in many of your like content and stuff. Like I feel like a lot of us have like very different experiences, but we're all united because there's some disabilities that are very like invisible. Like not many people can see that at first glance. So many people, I think you also relate to this in part, like people don't recognize at first that there's much more depth to disabilities than what's on the surface, right? So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really inspiring. And what inspired you to get into disability advocacy?
So I kind of fell into it by accident. It wasn't my intention to go into disability activism. I'd always been very passionate in talking to my classmates about my disability, cerebral palsy. And even primary school, we had teachers talking about my deafness, how I became deaf, and how different ways people can become deaf. And that experience have grown up like solidified my disabled identity, but I didn't really embrace my disabilities until I was, I think, 16, and that was right bam in the middle of a COVID pandemic. And I started working with the National Deaf Children's Society on a project that they had, which was about face masks, and I kind of spoke about my experience, and it kind of made me feel like I could go on and do something within content creation or even just general politics and policy making. And I'm creating content, and it's different from how it used to be. Definitely, it was something that I wasn't really looking for. It just came, and I'm really glad it's connected me with so many deaf people,
For sure.
not just in the UK, like America. Um, and it's been really good to connect with all these deaf people that I would have never met otherwise.
I can relate to that, like, especially since I created Here to Connect. I feel like I definitely had more contact with deaf and hard of hearing people, like, from all sorts of, like, different places, so I really love that about it. And
Yeah,
I love that you got into disability advocacy because I know there's so many, like, people who have disabilities in general that aren't so open about it, and, like, I feel like if they'd be more open, they can find people to actually relate to, and it's one of the best feelings in the world. Because
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I feel yeah, it's definitely one of the things I really love about it. I have people that come up to me in my work and tell me that they've been following me for a long time. They take it back because I've never realised how visible I am
Mhm.
until people walk up to me and they're like, "Hi," but I'm like, "Hi, I've never met you before, but thank you. I hope to see you around."
Yeah, yeah. It's such a nice feeling, for sure.
Yeah.
My third question is, what do you wish people knew about your disabilities?
I wish people would stop thinking that one you can just have one disability. I think it's definitely something that's came up time and time again. People just assume that I am just deaf or I'm just physically disabled, and that's definitely not the case. Like a lot of deaf people will have additional support needs or hidden disability, or even in my case, physical disability. And that shouldn't be like you have one disability and that's all you have. Your disabilities are not like a monolith.
Mhm.
To have more of an experience of being in the disability community. I definitely feel like within the deaf community there's such a focus on just being deaf and that's it. They don't really talk about the access that disabled people who are deaf might have problems with. For
Mhm.
example, BSL is really hard to get in the UK. That's due to like funding, but for disabled people, that choice between having to learn BSL or getting cochlear implants is a choice that their parents may have to make because they might have like disabilities that they actually need to communicate or may have struggles with like signing, which means that they have to lose out on a language because of their disability, and that should be a conversation that people should have of how disabilities can limit you and how there's not one perfect deaf person and that there should be more disabled people
Mhm.
with deafness, with other hearing loss, more visible within our media because I'm sure that we all know there are deaf people that are just deaf and that's it in our media, whereas we should have much more than that. And that's something that am really passionate about. I really like talking about it.
I fully agree with whatever you said. There's so much like diversity within the disability community itself. So I think it's great that like you and many other like content creators on Instagram and other socials are like definitely addressing that like not everyone has to have like one disability or people can there's so much diversity even in the hearing and deaf community as well. Because
Yeah,
people tend to associate here like deaf, meaning you only do ASL, but there's also people with cochlear implants that are very verbal, or people with hearing aids that's sign. So like diverse, and
yeah,
especially the thing you said about the BSL and then cochlear implants, like that's also like very complicated and controversial too. So yeah.
it's like definitely a hard conversation that we need to have. Like
Mhm.
a lot of doctors will tell deaf parent, parents of deaf children that if they learn sign language that their access to English or any other language is limited, which is not the case. Like there's a thing called total communication support, which is where parents adopt like sign language and talking at the same time, and it actually improves language acquisition. And is how we can develop language a bit better, and it's actually better for the children to have bilingual languages, or even being able to understand sign language to a certain extent is always something that we can have a conversation around, because I don't like this agenda. It's not really agenda that's been pushed on us, but more the media is forcing this idea that being deaf is bad, and therefore we should all go for a purely verbal approach, which is not always going to benefit everyone, but also we need to acknowledge that not everyone can take on sign language, like
Yeah.
uh, another language, if it's gonna be too much for them to grow up.
Yeah, I know my parents tried to when I was younger personally, they tried to like teach me sign and verbal at the same time, but I was getting confused a lot, so they kind of decided like I'll just learn English first and then
Like,
learn sign language. So I always think that's like always an option. It doesn't always have to be like both at the same time in case like the kids get confused, right? Like if you're
yeah,
having so again, I agree with everything you're saying.
yeah. Mm.
And this is my fourth question for you. What advice would you give to parents who are navigating a journey of raising their kids with a disability? Because I know many parents have been in the situation where their child is the only one with a disability in the family, or they don't have any background of like hearing loss or even like cerebral palsy or autism, like you mentioned. So do you have like any words of advice that could help guide these parents in the right direction, potentially?
But I think it's typical for every parent to think of the worst case scenario for your children, that you're like they're never gonna get far in life. But I'm here, and I'm physically disabled. I am deaf. I am autistic, and I have never. I've experienced challenges, of course. That's always going to be something that you and your children will face. But learning to have them accept their disability and be able to acknowledge that whatever anyone says about them isn't actually who they are as a person. And everyone growing up is a wee bit insecure, so you can't always blame young people for what they say. You can always encourage them and teach them to be better, and continue to advocate for a more accessible education. Um, like having people learn about AFL, for example, or even having a class taught about disabilities, how people can become disabled, how it's okay to become disabled, and that there's no one way to be disabled. Is a very good conversation to have, and like there's always a stigma and gloom about having a child with a disability, but there's never any positivism, and I kind of give parents that positivism of your child will be okay. Um, they will struggle, and you will be there for them, and you'll be a massive support in their lives. Like my parents were, my sisters were, but you also have to acknowledge that some of it they will have to go through it alone. And as long as you're there and you're being the loving parents that you are, and you're giving them the best opportunities in life. Nothing can really go wrong as long as you feel confident that your child is gonna be okay, then your child will be okay.
That is very true. I don't think any of us could have done it without our parents' support. So
Yeah.
that's really encouraging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your advice. All right. I know you were very involved in like a lot of projects and disability advocacy work. So is there like a favorite conference or project that you did during your time with advocacy?
um, so I have this project at work that I really love, and it's generally one of my passion projects. And my work are amazing for the work that I do, but outside of my work, because I would talk about my work all the time. I think one of my favourite projects that I've went on to do is on the transition strategy and how to help young people transition into like let me check if I'm saying of it. Either tertiary education, which is going into college and then university, or going straight into further education, or going straight into higher education, or even a place of work. That's always been something I've been really passionate about, because throughout my time in school I wasn't accurately transitioned to further education, and I had to make that transition all by myself, which is scary.
It's very
Young people don't understand how big of a jump it is to go from um just a high school that you've been in for like 7 years, that you've known your classmates for maybe 11 years if they went to school with you before, to now going out in the big world and being able to handle that anxiety and stress. So that's my favourite project. I'm really excited to have worked on it. And I love talking about like the big conversations that need to be talked about, because if we don't talk about them, who's gonna talk about it?
That is, yeah, I agree. And those sound like such meaningful projects. I'm really glad that like you had that experience to help other students like transition. Because
Yeah.
I'm going to be a senior in high school, and my parents are already talking about like transitioning for college, and I'm like, oh my God, it's definitely very daunting because when you're like you said, like you're leaving high school, all your friends going into a big world, but you also have like a disability, and like it's kind of scary because I take both my cochlears out at night when I sleep, so there's a lot of like safety precautions we have to think about. So that is such a like good message to be putting on here. So thank you so much.
Like for me, I am still living at home. I'm not planning with it anytime soon, but I have started thinking about like what happens if I do live out, like what's the plan. And for a lot of disabled people, that will be the reality. They have to think about everything all the time, even if they're not planning on doing that thing. They will think about it of like, okay, when will I start everything? When will the ball start rolling? And it can be very helpful having your parents being there guiding you throughout the whole process. But also a lot of the transition is scary on its own, that your parents will not always understand like how of a massive jump it is for you as a person going straight to college or university, and how you handle that adjustment, and how you handle all these types of scary situations. And there will be no way to make them any less scary, but knowing that other people are going through it and that they have made that jump makes the world a wee bit better.
Yeah. So I think it's like something that everyone goes through at some point. So yes, it'll be daunting, but we'll get there. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
And my next question for you is, I know we touched upon this like earlier, but many of the people who have a disability aren't always as like open about it because, there's so many different factors like society's expectations, their environment that they're raised in, or like just like how people at school treat them or view them. Because I know that's like a really big one with many disability advocates and people I've talked to. So were you ever in that like shell of not being open about your disability? And if so, like how did you come out of it? Or even just like any advice you'd give to people who are not very as open about their disability?
So for me, mental disability has always been visible. I've never been able to not talk about it. It's definitely an uncomfortable topic, particularly as a teenager going through like life and you're dealing with all these extra things that you now have and having that societal pressure to almost conform to what other people are doing. And I was a massive I victim for that. I definitely did not want to be viewed as a survivor. I would try and do everything that everyone else was doing. So I would be like, oh, I want to play football. Could I play football? No. But to me, it was being viewed as normal. If I was going through a school day, I didn't want to go in my wheelchair because I wanted to be seen as normal. Even though that would cause me a lot of pain to get through the entire school day. It was all about the small things. Even though my disability was very, very visible, like there was no hiding it. I would try and hide a wee bit of it. And I feel like there is no way of getting over that, like nervousness or inconfidence of not being able to be confident in your disability.
Mm.
Um, but it's more when you get to the age of 16, 17, 18, you really well, but actually, I don't care what people think. I think maturity is a massive factor. Like, you will always realize that people are just horrible for no reason. And there is no rhyme or reason for why they're saying the horrible things. And no one will ever grow out of that. Like, there's people I know that have apologized for that behavior, and that is really wonderful. But there's other people that I know that have just stayed the same way, and you can never change those people. You can always advocate for change, and you can always advocate that maybe they just learn more, but you can't change people.
Mhm.
And I think that's an important lesson to learn when you're disabled that you can't change everyone, but you can change how you view yourself and how you can learn to care very little about what they think, how they want to treat you. It's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of themselves. And you will always struggle with that phase of, oh, I don't want to be disabled, I hate being disabled. Particularly as you've grown up with a disability. But people who have just newly become disabled, there's a whole different ballgame of they were mm, mm, able-bodied or
Mhm.
non, they're disabled, and it's a new world that they have to go through. And it's all about like learning to accept that things have happened and that there's no changing what happened.
Mhm.
But there's a way of changing how you view the situation, and you'll always have anger and you'll always have frustration. And that will never 100% go away. Like, I'm so angry, I'm so frustrated that I am disabled. But man, loving yourself is the best policy.
Mhm. I think what a lot of what you said, like, really resonates with me and a bunch of other people, I'm pretty sure, because I know, like, there's definitely days that, we all wonder, like, we have those moments where we're, like, questioning everything and whatnot, but I think it's also really important to be more conscious of the way we present ourselves, because having that confidence and, like, energy, like, letting other people know to an extent, yes, like, you're more than your disability, but there's always gonna be people, like you said, that will not be very understanding of that. So I think it's really important, like you said, just to surround your people with people who truly, like, see you as a person. You know what I mean? Yeah. My next question for you is, so there's definitely a lot of deaf and hard of hearing stigmas within the deaf community and even the hearing community as well. So what are some of those stigmas you feel like aren't talked about as much that should be really talked about?
I think that the idea that every deaf person knows sign language. Not everyone does. Not everyone has the privilege to learn sign language. Um, it's definitely such a I don't really know how to explain it particularly. So in the UK, you have to pay
Mm,
to get BFL lessons, and that means that a lot of parents will have to pay out of pocket just to learn sign language, just to teach their own children. Which
That's
means some children will either be very lucky and their parents can pay that money,
mhm,
but some people won't. And it's all about understanding that it comes from a place of privilege and it comes from a place of if your parents were born deaf and they learn sign language and their children are also deaf and they learn sign language.
mm,
So it's all about how you've grown up is such a interesting conversation to have. Particularly when it comes to sign language and how you embrace the deaf community. Because not every deaf person accepts the deaf community and identifies themselves as being deaf. Um, and I also hate the conversation of the small d versus the big D. That's a big thing I hate. Because it assumes that deaf people are lesser than other deaf people just because one got access to cochlear implants and the other grew up deaf and had sign language, doesn't use any hearing devices, and it's almost putting people at a competition of who's better than the other when that shouldn't be the case. Deafness is deafness. Hearing loss is hearing loss. There's no one way to be deaf, and it
mhm.
frustrates me that we're still having this conversation in 2024 and that deaf people are deaf. Why are we trying to minimize them by using a capital D or a small d? Perhaps an argument that people can have, but I personally believe that everyone is deaf regardless not of whether they identify or not.
That's a good view of that's also a very unique view. I don't think I've heard that like view, especially on the like lowercase d and then uppercase d. That's a very like different perspective I've never like considered before.
Mm.
Because you're, I don't know, in the US, like, I think it's also not as well known with the like small and lowercase and uppercase d as well. So I think that's like a really interesting point because I think most people also just identify themselves as like deaf in general without like any deeper meaning. But I guess it's just whatever people prefer. Like if you really want to associate yourself like to a designated community, I guess they can feel free to do that. But everyone just has their own perspectives, and at the end of the day, we're all just united by our, disability, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And the point about like the BSL classes being really expensive, I don't know if it's the same here with us, like in the US, but I do know that like when I was trying to like learn ASL, some of the classes are like really, really pricey, which really sucks because I feel like this is just my personal opinion. I really wished that many schools kind of like normalized teaching ASL because there's definitely a good amount of like deaf people who are living here and also other places in the world. And I think that's really beneficial to help with the language barrier and make everyone more interconnected for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely like international issue of um sign language has been so expensive.
Mhm.
Um there's a lack of deaf sign language teachers, also sign language teachers in general. And we in the UK, particularly England, have created a qualification for young people to go under. So that would be people that are like from ages 11 to 18 will be able to BSL. And it was so exciting. It was just being developed and it's definitely something that I want to see more of, particularly in Scotland. We do have a qualification, but it's not taught in schools. Not enough schools anyway. And there should be more schools that should teach sign language and how important it is in the history of deafness. Because the history of deafness is so interconnected, whether we like to admit it or not. We are all very much connected globally. Um, because I was doing my lovely research paper on deafness for college.
Okay.
Uh, Interestingly, we had a deaf school here in Edinburgh, and it was it was the Brazos and Wood of deaf and dumb, right?
Mm.
Um, but an American guy came over here and wanted to learn more about how we teach deaf people back in the 1870s. Then he went back to America and adopted that into their deaf school, and then a bunch of other things. But it's so interesting how influential that one American guy coming here has
Mm-hmm.
changed how deaf education was over in America. And yeah, I just love that piece of history, and that history should always be taught to deaf young people
Mm-hmm.
and deaf adults. Like so many people probably don't know how languages were created, like how the sign languages were created, or who came up with it, or why was it created, and why is there so many different ones like that can be a very interesting conversation
Uh-huh.
that can start from that um simple teaching of the history of the deaf community. Um, but yeah, I was that all day for you to hear the entire episode.
It's really cool though, like an entire essay on that topic. That like I would love to read that sometime. So like
Yeah, definitely I'll send over.
sounds good. Oh yeah, one of my other questions I wanted to ask was, is there like any good resources that you'd recommend for people who are deaf and hard of hearing? I know it's like different for like overseas and like different places in the world, but is there like just any general resources that you would just recommend?
So there is a lot of amazing deaf content creators who have their own information out there. So for example, one of my friends, Letty, is also disabled but also deaf, and they create a lot of content
Mhm.
being a BSL user and a wheelchair user, and they are incredible for sharing that information. There are most of the other content creators in America as well who talk about their experience with AFL and being deaf and being disabled.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, I've seen, I don't know if this is the experience for you, but I feel like there isn't quite a lot of other deaf content creators. It's mainly UK and US. I've never seen Spanish deaf content creators, and maybe that's something that we should change. Like, if anyone in the comment section would love to give me recommendations of international deaf content creators, then we'll thank you. But also, your own organisations or charities will have their own resources. So the National Deaf Children's Society is in the UK, but there's Deaf Child Worldwide. There's the National Deaf Children's is also an international organisation. They have their own sector as well.
Okay.
Uh, I believe they do. If they don't, just misquote me. But I believe that they did have an international sector of it. But honestly, your own organisations have their own resources, and I don't want to send on the wrong resources. But content creators, if you can find one in your own country, are the best shout. If you can find a local organisation that's based in your country and is talked to like deaf experiences, that's also really important. But
Mm-hmm.
also, just simply asking around, going to your local deaf, like if you, I know a lot of places in America do have deaf clubs. You can go in there, they can help you. But yeah, that's all my advice.
Yeah, I think those are like that's a really good piece of like advice as well, because I think it gets overlooked sometimes, but like really like social media can also be really helpful, especially with the content creators. Like I follow Mama Who, I follow so many other like amazing content creators that have definitely like opened my mind for like resources, especially as a like deaf individual myself. So thank you for sharing that. Now that we're at the end of our time together, I just wanted to ask you, do you have like any final comments or questions that you wish I had asked, or just any final words for the audience?
Definitely, I appreciate your time and letting me ramble about all the wonderful things that I've done. And I recommend all you to follow. Um, you've done fantastic work as well. You're connecting so many deaf people to other organisations and other content creators. You should definitely be proud of yourself for that. And I think people forget that we see all the amazing things that other people do, but we forget that we're also doing the incredible things as well. So always take that into consideration. If everyone else is doing amazing things, that probably means you're also doing amazing things and your exposure, your connections are not being unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
Audience, I want you to comment down below what your favourite sign is in your sign language. And
That's
then I will challenge people to try and sign it in different languages.
that's a nice question for the audience. Thank you so much, Cara, for your time here. I really like loved having you on with us today. It's really inspiring to hear your story. And I've been like following you for a good year or so, like even on my personal account. So it's like I'm so inspired by the stuff you do. You're amazing. I love to see what else you do next. I'm really excited for you. And it was such an honor to get to speak with you today. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.